Alright guys, part 2 here of my video series on buying used farm equipment, the different ways you can buy used equipment and the pros and cons of each. If you haven't seen part 1, I talk about buying equipment from farm equipment dealerships. You can go back and look up part 1. Maybe I'll put a link in the description. I rewatched part 1 when I had talked about equipment dealerships, and I may have been a little hard on the equipment dealers. Like I say, there are some dealers out there that are a joy to work with and definitely support their customers. I know a lot of the bigger farm operators don't mess around with any of this little stuff like I would. They exclusively deal with their local dealer, and that's it. But I've just been having a lot of bad luck lately with equipment dealers. I don't know if it's just me or what the deal is. So the more it seems like I deal with some of them, the more I'm turned off and say the heck with you. I can do better on my own. So just as an example there, my 685 when I bought it, the wheels were set really wide. I needed it set narrow for 30-inch corn rows because I was going to be spraying. And the way it was set up, the wheels had to come off the axles and get flipped side to side, and I didn't have a loader or any kind of heavy shop equipment to do that. So I had asked him on 3 different occasions, can he set the rear wheels for 30-inch rows, different phone conversations that I had with him. I tried to be a customer to make things easy on him. I didn't finance it. I wrote him a check. They didn't have to deliver it. I had somebody go get it, and basically they didn't have very much to do on their end, but he had said that they would do that for nothing for me for buying it, so I appreciated it. We get it home, and I thought it looked a little wide, so I drove it out in the cornfield, and I was running corn down. So I drove back in the shop, got the tape measure out. Here they were on 38-inch rows, and I had asked him for 30-inch rows, and here it was all the way at home. And after I was done throwing wrenches around and getting mad, I thought there's no sense calling him back. You just have to start to expect that from some dealers. After 3 different times asking him to set it at that measurement, I ended up doing it myself anyway. So the other reason I'm having some problems with dealers, like I said, asking questions is a big thing that I believe in as far as a used piece of equipment. Ask questions on where it came from, or who might have had it, or what it was used for. And I had a dealer tell me they don't give out specifics on what it was used or who had it. And I thought, well, they're trying to hide something if they're not going to tell me kind of what the history was on it, and basically it's a thank you and goodbye from there. So I don't mean to be pick on them all. Those are just some of the experiences that I've gone through recently. They're fresh in my mind. So anyway, this is part 2. I want to talk about auctions, and I'm going to come right out and tell you guys right from the beginning so you know where I stand. I hate going to equipment auctions. It's my least favorite way to buy farm equipment. There's several reasons why. I want to get into it in this video. Yes, you can get some very good deals at auctions. You're nowhere near going to pay retail for some of the equipment, depending on the auction, depending on who shows up, and depending on who wants it. First of all, I'll get right out to it and tell you some of the reasons why I don't like auctions. Anyway, I went to an auction, and it was a real weird day to have an auction. It wasn't the best weather, and there's only maybe 50 people at this auction. I was bidding on, I think it was a head for my Massey Combine, and I was the only bidder that wanted this head, and it wasn't like it was that low or unreasonable of a bid. I didn't start down at $100 like most of them would. I threw out a bid right away, let them know I wanted it, and the auctioneer just rattled on and on and on and on. He knew it was worth more than what I bid, and he wanted to get more to try to make up for the poor turnout. And all of a sudden, somebody throws out a bid, and I turn around and look behind me, and the guy that bid on it was one of the auctioneer's employees. And the reason I know that was I was there early, and I saw this guy pull in, towing the auctioneer's equipment trailer and setting up for the auction. So I knew right away he was an employee, and he was there bidding against me to try to drive up the price, and I would not throw out another bid. I was kind of angry about the whole thing that they would do something like that. And I said, to heck with you, you bought it now. So I don't know whatever became of that. But like I said, the auctioneer was the winning bidder. Auctioneers tend to be a little bit more slimy than used car salesmen in some of their tactics. I have gone to some auctions where the bidding is getting that desperate. They're trying to go by 50-cent increments, and it's ridiculous. So I have bought equipment from auctions, though, don't get me wrong. I have bought some tillage equipment here or there. When I was buying and selling, yes, I'd go to the auctions. Reason number 2 why I don't like auctions is dealers go to auctions, the equipment dealers. And some of them try to hide it. Some of them will send an employee or send somebody that the community doesn't know very well, tell them what to buy and give them a cap on how much to spend. And usually dealers sometimes end up buying equipment. That can be rough as a dealer, because if you're known in the community and you go to an auction and outbid your neighbors that go to you for parts and equipment, that can have a negative impact. There are dealers that don't try to hide it. You get to the auction and they come rolling in with their rollback, and it says right on the door who it is, and they even wear their uniforms, and they'll outbid you just like they'd outbid anybody else. So it can be tough bidding against dealers sometimes. It can be tough to get a deal. I know I've seen that many times, and I've even dealt with that before. Reason number 3 why I don't like auctions is you're bidding against your neighbors. If your neighbors want something and the same thing you want, you're bidding against them. Sometimes that can cause a rift between neighbors or anything like that. And the other thing is then you become the talk of the community, especially if you pay too much or you get something at a deal, then there's all kinds of gossip going around. So far away auctions are a little bit better sometimes, but I don't have a desire to go to many auctions anymore. Most times things I wanted that I knew I wanted to buy have been outbid, and depending on the auction, people will pay more than you could go to a dealership and buy it. Even the small stuff. I've been to auctions where people are paying $200 for a used hydraulic cylinder when you can go to your local Tractor Supply and get one for $110, the same size, brand new. It's insanity at some auctions that you go to. What people will pay. The key with auctions is, and there's really no way to predict this, is going in bitter cold weather over the winter. That tends to help. It keeps a lot of the looky-loos away. Another thing that helps is turnout, depending on the day of the week when they have the auction. I think this was like a Monday noon auction, so I had to take a half day off of work to go, so there wasn't a lot of people there, so the turnout wasn't very good. So definitely the date is going to play into that. If it's a Saturday auction and it's in the wintertime on a warm day and there's 300 vehicles there, forget about it. Just I have gone to auctions like that, and I've seen the turnout, and I went home. Now, that's not necessarily everybody's coming to bid. A lot of people walk around with bidder cards that they never even use. You have a lot of people just coming to look and be nosy and like to eat hot dogs and stand around and talk about equipment. There's only a few serious bidders usually every time. But I just standing outside all day. Usually the bigger equipment doesn't get sold till last. If you're looking for something, especially tractors, they'll save them for very last. So you have to spend a whole day there pretty well. And I'm the type of person that it doesn't really bother me who's buying what or how much the stuff is going for. I usually don't go as a social function. If I go to an auction, it's because I saw something advertised that I want, and I want to bid on it, and I want to be there to bid on it. So, yeah, that's kind of my take on auctions. As far as successes at auctions, I had bought a piece of tillage equipment, and this was like a day after Thanksgiving or day before Thanksgiving. It was, I don't know, bitter cold outside. It was a brilliant spring. It wasn't a spring tooth. It had shanks. It was like a heavy-duty harrow, almost like a vibra shank. Not a chisel, but I don't even remember the model anymore. Anyway, it wasn't the best. It was weathered was the biggest thing. It didn't look the best, and because of that reason, I only got it for $300. So that was definitely a good deal. But there are auctioneers, and I know who they are now, that I will not, if they're doing an auction, I won't go, because they'll have their own people bidding against you. Phone bidders are another thing. I was buying a Ford 7600 at an auction. I was the high bidder, and the auctioneer knew that it was worth more than what my bid was, and he was trying everything he could to get it sold. He was just going on, and I'm thinking to myself, just end it. I have the high bid. But he wasn't going to end it, and all of a sudden a mysterious phone bidder put another $1,000 on the bid. So I don't know if that was the auctioneer again playing games or what the deal was, but hey, you can have success. I was at an auction this spring. I was trying to buy a International 686 tractor. I didn't want to spend a whole lot of money on it because all 4 tires were bald. It had one of those outhouse-sized or tool shed sized cabs on it. I don't like some of the cabs that International had, the early ones. Would have taken a lot of work. I had in mind what I was going to spend, and that was it. Once I reached that, I was done. So, and that's kind of the key too, not getting caught up in all the excitement of the auctioneer and the bidding going on. The biggest trick for getting equipment is knowing what you want to pay and leaving it at that. Don't go over just because you're caught up in the moment, or you're going to end up being like the guys buying $200 used hydraulic cylinders. The other tip for auctions is to see if you can find the owner of the equipment and have a good conversation with him before the auction. Talk to him about absolutely everything you can about the piece of equipment you want to buy. Get the story right from the owner instead of don't talk to the auctioneers or rely on their description. Like I say, I've been dealing with some slimy auctioneers lately, and I don't know if that's the case everywhere for you guys. Some people have good luck at auctions. I just never have. I get fed up with auctions, and probably don't want to go to anytime soon, but like I say, it depends on what it is. What else with auctions? As far as turnout, I'll go back to turnout. Like I say, a lot of people have said this before, and it's probably universal knowledge that all it takes is one other person that wants it as bad as you. The guy who's outbidding you, he wants it. It's just a matter of who's going to hit that cap of what you're going to spend. And that's where it plays into it with talking to the owner, getting a backstory. If the owner swears by it, tells you the history and everything's good, you might be able to up your cap as far as how much you want to spend on it, as long as you don't go over retail. A lot of the collector auctions, now it's a little bit different. If you're buying an antique tractor and you want an antique for your collection and you go to an antique collector's auction, then it all comes down to condition. And basically, if you want it bad enough, then it's what you're willing to spend. So we're getting near the end of this video. I know this is recycled footage from Harvest this year. I needed some type of background to make these voiceovers. So I hope you enjoyed this. Tomorrow's video will be buying equipment private sale, and that is by far my favorite way to buy used farm equipment. I'll get into that in tomorrow's video. I didn't get a chance to read a lot of the comments on the previous video as far as dealers, but like I said, been having a lot of bad luck there and a lot of bad luck at auctions. So tomorrow I'll go into my favorite way to buy equipment, and that will be a live video feed down in the shop. So thanks for watching, guys. Stay tuned for part 3, and hopefully this helps.